What's going on, everyone? Obviously, the big game is finally here this weekend, and who better to talk to than Super Bowl champion and also former NFL player and ESPN college football analyst, Kevin Carter. I do have him join me on the line right now. What's going on?
How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for your time.
No problem. No problem.
So, Kevin, big game this weekend. I mean, New England and Atlanta. First off, are you in Houston?
I am not in Houston. That is usually a fiasco, and it's usually a time fraught with burning the candle and coming back with no voice. So I decided to save myself from that this year. No appearances, nothing for me to do this year. I'll be watching it from my couch. So
in peace, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and by the way, though, I mean, how is that whole week there? Because we were discussing a bit earlier on the show, and he was saying how, everything is always so hectic during that week. And I was like, well, you know what? I mean, people should enjoy it because, if anything, this is the one week out of the year where it's kind of like the holiday of sports, So
yeah.
How is it over there, like the experience?
Well, you know what? It's a busy week I think for everyone except for the players. Your week really goes on just status quo. It's usually just a normal game week for you. I mean, the teams that do a really good job of keeping their players sequestered from all the media hoopla and everything else. And, I mean, there's so many people that are just in town for the game. There's so many former players. There's so many different media outlets, and there's so many parties. I mean, all things that are just, golden distractions, basically, for keeping you away from what is, the biggest game of your life. Coaches try to get players to buy into the fact that, hey, the game you're playing, whatever game you're playing, it's the biggest game of your life. It's just, it's the game we have today and this and that. But this literally is the biggest game of your life if you play football. And if you're fortunate to make it to that game, I mean, you really don't want to have to, you really don't want to be a part of anything else other than getting ready for the game. So my Super Bowl experience was actually very calm. The distractions came from family, came from friends, it came from people who were all going to the game and, tickets and stuff like that. And so I tried my best to just keep myself removed from all of that and just try to focus on, just playing the game.
Did you have to kind of turn your phone off? Because I know some players, during, the big games, they'll just kind of be out for a week and not talk to any family or anybody?
Yeah, just, what I try to do is just be unavailable. I talk to my parents and talk to my wife and everybody else, and I was pretty much done. I mean, I had my, had my parents, had my mom and dad play the bad guy with all family and everything else, and just try to stay away from all the, distractions. I mean, there's so much going on and there's so many parties. I mean, it's a great atmosphere, don't get me wrong. But, usually the teams choose hotels that are located close to practice facilities and away from some of the media hoopla because you can't even leave your room. I mean, you go on into the lobby of your hotel, and there are fans and there's people and, there's interview opportunities and everything else. And, I mean, just the media day itself at Super Bowl is a fiasco. I mean, I remember we had David Blaine was out doing some of his street magic at our media day, and he was just walking around down on the turf there in the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, and I mean it was a spectacle. I mean, it was something to see, and it was a lot of fun, having people like that on hand. So many different celebrities in town, but I just try to stay away from as much of that as I could.
Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned the intensity and also the pressure. I mean, but looking at the two teams this weekend, I mean, this is Brady's 7th Super Bowl appearance, and it will just be Matt Ryan's first Super Bowl appearance. I mean, do you think that will play a big factor in how, Ryan performs this weekend?
Definitely. Having been there and done that before, Tom Brady definitely has the advantage. But, as far as the matchup itself, as far as the game, that's the one thing that people, I think, don't realize. And I didn't realize it until I was actually playing the game. I mean, with all the attention surrounding it and all the hoopla and all the fanfare and everything else, once the whistle blows, once you cross the white lines, it's just football. It's just a game. And you have to do all the things that made you successful getting to the game in order to win that game. And for Tom Brady, I mean, having been there and done that and kind of being over the whole Super Bowl scene and not having the pressure and the weight of not having won one will definitely go in his favor. But, we're talking about Matt Ryan and the Falcons. I mean, this is, the number one scoring offense in the NFL. And it's a great matchup because they're going against the number one scoring defense. In the NFL, in the New England Patriots. I mean, only allowing, 15.6 points per game, this year was really impressive by their defense. I mean, I know we talk about Brady and his use of all of his receivers, and it doesn't matter. Every year they just seem to, get so many more players. It doesn't matter who they plug in. No Gronk, no problem. Their players seem to step up, and it really centers around Brady. But, their defense, to me, is what's been the most impressive part of their postseason run. I mean, people just could not move the ball on this Patriots defense, and that's really going to be a challenge just to see if Matt Ryan can do what he's done pretty much all season and just, tear people to shreds in the air.
But Matt Ryan has been playing incredible this postseason. I mean, his first two playoff games, he's thrown, I believe, like 7 touchdowns and no interceptions. But how is, the Super Bowl different, pressure-wise, as opposed to any other playoff game? Just
because there's so much surrounding it. I mean, the TV timeouts seem to be longer. The halftime is longer. When you walk into the stadium, there's not your normal fans, in the stadium. I mean, the entire, I think, first 30, 40 rows, behind our bench one section was family. But, I remember looking up in the crowd and seeing, people from Hollywood, all types of singers and, athletes from other sports. I mean, and there were a lot of people on our sideline. I mean, just stars, you're getting ready to run out, for defense, and there's, you're standing next to, Robert Redford or, someone like your ushers on your sideline, and you're like, okay, I'm getting ready to go out here and play defense, but what are you doing on my sideline? So, but yeah, that is something that Matt Ryan is going to have to contend with. I mean, it will not be like any other game he's ever played. The implications, are obviously enormous, being that, Atlanta hasn't made a trip to the Super Bowl in a long time. And this is kind of, Matt Ryan's chance to really cement, the first championship chapter in his legacy in the game of football. I mean, he's done so well thus far, but, really hasn't been great in the playoffs. But this playoff run has been completely different. He's shown up just like he showed up in the regular season. And with the number one scoring offense, they got their work cut out for him. But like I said, he's going to have to just get past the fact that there's so much fanfare surrounding it, and there's, stars and A-list Hollywood actors in the stands, and, relax and play football and, get the ball to the open receiver and not turn the ball over. That's what he's going to have to – that's the challenge for Matt Ryan. And, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, my personal feelings lie with the Falcons, and I hope they get it done. Not a huge Patriots fan. Got some bad memories as far as that goes. Everybody in the AFC that played the Patriots in the early 2000s know about that. But Matt Ryan's got his work cut out for him. But I think he can do it. I think that if there is a quarterback who can make the decisions to stay patient, it's going to be Matt Ryan. I mean, he has the weapons in the air to get it done. And I think defensively, having Freeney and having Vic Beasley, having that pass rush, Tom Brady is like any other quarterback if you put pressure on him. If you get him on the ground, that makes a difference, and that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have a relentless pass rush. They're going to have to stop LeGarrette Blount on the ground. This Atlanta defense, I think, is where the real matchup is with them versus Tom Brady and the Patriots offense.
And what are your thoughts on Julio Jones?
Julio Jones is, he was one of the best receivers in the game this year. Is he healthy? Is that a question? Is his health a question for the game? I'm not quite sure. But if he's healthy, it gives, Atlanta just a one-on-one matchup nightmare. I mean, no one has an answer for a 6'4", athletic receiver of his caliber. Some of the catches that he's able to make, it really compromises defense. Defenses typically want to, play their coverages that they have matched with the front and pressure and blitzes that they have designed to get after your quarterback. But, those 50-50 balls that quarterbacks put into the air where it's just a battle mano-a-mano between the receiver and the defensive back, that almost always goes in Atlanta's favor just because of the quality of the receiver that he is, that he brings to this offense. So, having someone like him is kind of a trump card, and, he's made use of him in this postseason.
Yeah, and, looking at, this weekend, clearly, Atlanta, it's like the biggest game for them and their golden opportunity to win their first Super Bowl. In the beginning of the season, though, they had a 150-1 odds of winning. Were you surprised that Atlanta got this far? Not
really. They're one of those streaky teams that they look so impressive, some weekends. And, historically, they've been the team that just tore it up in the regular season. And then once they got to the postseason, they kind of laid an egg. This year was the first year they kind of turned the corner. And, having played for Dan Quinn down in Miami, I was down in Miami playing for the Dolphins during the Nick Saban experiment. And Dan Quinn was my defensive line coach. And even back then, it was like, Dan, what are you doing in our defensive line room, dude? You're a coordinator or a head coach at best. This is not your gig. And for him, he's the one that got this team turned around, and he got them to the point where, they can take that next step. And I think they did it largely defensively. Being able to stop people and being able to run the ball in the postseason is how you win games in the NFL. When it gets cold outside, and it's not just because of the weather and people not wanting to hit people because it's cold, but it's also because of the fact that no one is healthy at this time of the year. It's really a mental drain on you to play at your highest level, after playing so much football. And but, it is, you're right, it is their golden opportunity. And Atlanta has its best chance, I think, in a long time to get it done.
Now, have you kept in touch with Dan Quinn?
I spoke to Dan Quinn before this season, just to wish him good luck. I have nothing to do with pro football. I'm all college football on ESPN. But, it's a local team. I live down in Tampa, Florida, and I grew up watching the Falcons. And just really happy for him as a human being, as a coach. And he thought his, outlook on this season was really good. Having a quarterback, I think, really helps you, in the game of football. People don't realize how important that person touches the ball every play is to your success. And I think his leadership has really permeated throughout the franchise. But I think the biggest difference, like I said, this year, and one thing he made mention of it is their defense, their ability to get after opposing quarterbacks. Those game-changing plays, those sack, cause, fumble, those drive killers, those 2-minute drive killers at the end of the game, those types of game-changing, game-ending plays are what they have the capability for this year. So, I couldn't have called it by the conversation I had with him, but he certainly had confidence that they were going to be a good team this year. Yeah,
and even though this is his first year leading the team in the Super Bowl, so It'll be good. But before I let you go, Kevin, I know you said that you do want the Falcons to win. So I'm going to let you make your final prediction, though. With the Patriots being the slight favorite, do you still believe that the Falcons will win this weekend?
I think the Falcons get it done. I think it's going to be a 31-24 game. I think it's going to be slow going in the beginning. I think it's going to be a bit of a defensive struggle because I think that, Atlanta's basically, their mantra for this game is to outplay the number one scoring defense in the NFL, and that's the Patriots. If they can keep pace defensively with the Patriots and not let Brady get loose, then they have the upside when it comes to, making those 2-minute drives, those scoring drives, those big plays, those game-changing plays that can possibly give them the win. So, my heart and my head are both going with Atlanta.
Well, thank you so much for your insight, and I greatly appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Helen.